Welcome to the course. Let's start with a brief introduction about Bitcoin. If you're already familiar with Bitcoin, you can skip this video. I'm your host Frank, and together we'll unravel the mysteries of this cryptocurrency. So we'll go into a user perspective. We don't go into all the technicalities of the blockchain and how these transactions spread over the internet and so on. So let's start at the beginning. So Bitcoin is often referred to as digital gold, but basically it is just a database. And it is decentralized, meaning it runs on many computers. So there is no central authority in between that carries out the transactions. So at the core of this Bitcoin, there is this database, the blockchain, that stores all the transactions. So think of it as a digital accounting book. So you might wonder, how do you get Bitcoin? So you can either buy them online from an exchange, or you get them through a process called mining, where computers, they solve problems and that creates those Bitcoins. You can also trade them in other ways these days, but those are the main ways, like an exchange or a dedicated website where you can buy them. Mining is technically possible, but these days you will need a lot of expensive hardware that gets really expensive to mine them. So, let's say you buy some Bitcoin. Where do you put them? So the same way where you would put your cash, in a wallet. So if you go to bitcoin.org, you can click choose wallet and click next. And then you have several options. So there's desktop wallets, mobile wallets, and hardware wallets. These are all possible wallets. So think of them as different types of wallets in the real world. Basically the same idea, but they run on different systems. So they run on Windows, Mac, or Linux computers, on mobile devices, Android, iPhone, or hardware wallets, which are specialized devices just for securing Bitcoins. Now, you'll see here the note that is one of the most secure methods to store funds. And you might wonder, does it really make such a difference? In this course, we'll teach you how much of a difference it really makes and how easy it can be for a hacker to get into such systems if things are not configured right, or if the user makes some simple mistake. So, just like your physical wallet, security, also your digital wallet needs security. And with Bitcoin, you are responsible for your own security. There is no third party that takes care of your money, of your Bitcoins. You are responsible for it yourself. And so, if you want to be using Bitcoins, you better be familiar with all the risks that are involved. So in this course, we try to cover some of those risks, about these security risks when you use these different kind of wallets. Now, there are some other factors that is important with Bitcoin, like the volatility factor. Volatility. Price can go up and down and other things. But this course really focuses on security. So you want to have Bitcoins. How do you store them safely? Or you want to transact Bitcoins. What risks should you be aware of? And we try to cover this not just theoretically, but also give you some practical demos or demonstrations of how a hacker might get into your system and steal your Bitcoins. So this is not a hacking course, but really focuses on security, and hopefully it will give you some ideas of how you can keep your Bitcoins more secure. Until next time, this course will just be the tip of the iceberg, but give you some idea about security, cybersecurity in the realm of Bitcoin. Until next time, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Stay curious, stay excited, and welcome to the fascinating universe of Bitcoin and cybersecurity. Cheers! So we're gonna look at desktop wallets. So those are wallets for Bitcoin that are programs on your computer. So you can install a desktop wallet on your computer, and that wallet allows you to interact with the Bitcoin network. You can send and receive Bitcoin. So it's just an app on your computer. Now you can do that on a Windows app. If you use Windows, if you use Mac app. If you use Linux, you have Linux app. Desktop apps. So if you go to bitcoin.org, you have an option, choose your wallet. Now there are different types of wallets, just like in the real world. You have different type of wallets, right? You have piggy bank, and you have like portable wallets, and also other types. So just like that, with Bitcoin, you can have different wallets. So you can have software wallets. So the top ones are all software wallets. You have the mobile wallet for Android and iPhone, and desktop wallets for all the other systems. So all of these are just software apps. So you have an app running on your Windows computer, or an app running on your Apple computer, your iPhone, Android. It's just a software app, nothing else. Or you can use a hardware wallet, which is like specialized software for Bitcoin. So in this video, we'll look at desktop wallets. So we'll have a Windows computer here. So we click Windows, click Next, click New, Next, and we're just going with all the defaults. So click Next twice. And you see we have two default Bitcoin wallets, BitPay and Electrum. So if we visit this website, you'll see there's two options. You can either have it on your let's go for download app. So you can have either the Coin or the Electrum wallet. Probably there's many more wallets, but okay, this one is for iPhone. It doesn't seem that it's for desktop at all. So let's just go with Electrum and click Windows installer. If you select Electrum here, go to electrum.org and then you can install it, or you can use the portable version, and then start your wallet. Start Electrum. We can go for default wallet. You'll see it's a file on the computer. The file does not exist, so that file is very important. Click Next. Standard wallet. We can use the new seed. It will generate some bunch of words. Now it's important to write these down on paper, same order, and because computer fails, which computers do sometimes, because of age of the computer, the disk usage and so on, computers just fail, then you can restore your wallet and still have access to your Bitcoin, provided that you have not been hacked and someone has taken or stolen your Bitcoins. Okay, so we can write down these words. So normally you would write them on paper, but just for this demo, we write them down in Notepad. And you wouldn't show these to anyone except yourself, because these allow you to access your Bitcoins. So only you shouldn't show those in a screencast, in a YouTube, in a video course, or anything else, if you're actually going to use them for storing Bitcoin. So let's rewrite those words, because that's what they're asking us in the next step. Then we click Next. We can password protect. Now, just for simplicity, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to click Next. And you see, you can update it. You should always update it for security reason, but so just to make sure that there is not any bug in your wallet, you should update it. So now you'll see we have a simple wallet here with 0 Bitcoin in it. We can send Bitcoin to an address. You can see you can paste an address here, put an amount and send it if you have Bitcoins. You can receive it. If you want, you can receive Bitcoin. You can request a certain amount. This is your basic wallet. So this is just one of the many wallets. If you click View Addresses, you can see your Bitcoin addresses. So it's a very basic wallet, and there's many wallets for Bitcoins. So it really depends on what you prefer, what are your needs. For example, BitPay was another one. Depending on your system, they will have different ones. So if you select Apple, you'll see a lot more wallets for Apple. On the next computers, they have different wallets, and also on iPhone and Android. So it really depends on what system do you use. But what these have in common is that both mobile and desktop apps are software wallets, meaning it's just an app on your computer that stores the Bitcoin in some files, basically, or the keys to the Bitcoin in files. Now, that could be secure. Were it not that computers are often not secure because of maybe the computer has not been updated, security mistakes in the configuration, a user that is just not paying attention or being tricked. So a lot of computers get hacked and systems as well. That's why software wallets might not be the best idea to store your Bitcoins, and we'll get into that more in the next video. Hey everyone, welcome back to the course. Today we're going to discuss a crucial topic, the risks of running random internet apps. So random apps you download from the internet, perhaps for free, especially when you have a Bitcoin wallet. Let's dive right in. So before we get to the nitty-gritty, let's understand why this is important. Your Bitcoin wallet is like a digital safe. And when you run it, you want to make it secure. You don't want random people stealing your Bitcoins. Running random apps from the internet can expose you to many threats, like reverse shells, and that's what we're here to address. So first things first, what is a reverse shell? In simple terms, it's a sneaky way for a hacker to gain control of your device, potentially compromising your sensitive information, including your Bitcoin wallet. And we get it, there's a ton of cool apps out there, but downloading them randomly can open the doors to security vulnerabilities. So you might want to stick to trusted sources to minimize those risks if you go for the software wallet option. So let's do some real life examples where people fell victim to running random apps. So it's not a risk worth taking when your digital assets are on the line. So when you have Bitcoin wallets and you run random apps, it could be that you can lose those apps just by doing one click, one random app that you shouldn't have started. So, okay, now let's give you an actual example of all this. So here we have a random Bitcoin wallet, the Electrum wallet. It can be any software wallet. And suppose we downloaded the file from the internet. So we go to the downloads directory. Suppose we downloaded this program. Now, it can be named anything. The icon can be different. Might look like something familiar, or maybe something not familiar. But suppose we get a program from the internet. Maybe it's not even a program, but a movie or something you want to look at. So in this case, it's a program. And once we double click it, you'll see it's loading. Doesn't seem like anything happens. It's just loading, and then it finishes loading. So it seems like, okay, this is just a game that doesn't work, or an app that you download from the internet and it doesn't work. But behind the scenes, what happened here is that you gave a hacker access to your Windows computer. So the hacker could then potentially steal your Bitcoins. So let's actually look at behind the scenes. So on the left here, we have the hacker's computer. You'll see they use another system called Kali Linux. It's a system specifically for hacking. And he already has access to your computer. So if he lists the file in the directory, it has a command line interface. You'll see he's in your downloads directory, and there's a lot of files here, including the program we just started. So you'll see there's the program we just started, and some other things in your directory. Now, with this reverse shell, the hacker can control your whole computer. So if I type help here, you can see he can do all kinds of things. Steal your passwords. He can play sounds on your computer, record your microphone or webcam, control your mouse and keyboard. And there's really a lot of things that he can do. Even turn off your computer, reboot it, and so on. So one of the things he can do is download. And what he can do is then download your Bitcoin wallet from your computer. So let's say he does that. First, he needs to go to the folder where your wallet is stored. So he would go from the current directory, which is the downloads directory, and would then go to the, in this case, app data directory. Now from here to the roaming directory, and then he would find out, okay, you are using Electrum or whichever software wallet. Then go into the wallets directory, and then he would just download the default wallet. And now the hacker has your Bitcoin wallet on your computer, on his computer. So here we have the default wallet file that he could then open with Electrum and spend your Bitcoin. Now, so there's things you can do to prevent this with the software wallet. So one of the most obvious things to prevent this is to don't disable your firewall and your network security settings. So if you go to Defender, so we open the Windows security, and you'll see virus and threat protection is off, so make sure that is on. And also turn on the firewall in case it's off. Now let's go to the, let's make sure it's actually on. So we go to virus and threat protection. You'll see the real-time protection is off, so you want to turn that on. If you go to manage settings, make sure you turn all of that on. It might be annoying, those messages, or if the computer is doing something, but if you're storing Bitcoin, more security can save your Bitcoin. So that's some of the basic things you can do. Now, there's also a best practice that you can do, is which don't download any application from the internet. Only use the official stores, for example, the Microsoft Store, to download applications in order to prevent this kind of risks. So those are some of the things you can do to prevent those kind of attacks. So now we turn those on, and let's see if we can still run it. And you'll see now Windows blocked it. Windows Defender blocked this reverse shell, so the hacker can now not steal our Bitcoins. This might be enough or might not be enough, depending on how advanced is the hacker's attack. When you have a software wallet, you always have these kind of risks that someone at some point gets access to your computer and steals your Bitcoins. It's just a file from your computer. Now, besides that, what you could do is to set a password. If you go to wallet password, in the case of Electrum, other wallets have a similar thing. You could do a password protection that could help to save Bitcoin. But overall, you have to be really mindful of your computing use if you decide to store Bitcoins in a software wallet, because you saw how easy it was for a hacker to get in. All you needed to do is one click on a malicious application and they can steal your Bitcoin. So let's talk a bit about best practices. You want to only download applications from official sources. So for example, from the Microsoft Store, from the Windows Store or Apple Store or whatever you use. And don't download random applications from sites just because they're free or because you see it. Or it might be too good to be true and so on. And the same applies to other kind of data. So there could be applications that disguise as a movie or even things like a Word document. So you have to be really mindful about what files do you get on your computer if you decide to use an app to store your Bitcoins. Now, besides that, you want to update your systems, because if your system is not updated, hackers can use security holes that have been found years ago and then access your computer and steal your Bitcoin. So you want to make sure you keep everything up to date. Don't make it too easy, especially if you store a lot of things. Now, what you can consider is using a dedicated device for your Bitcoins, because when you have a dedicated device, it minimizes the risk of those threats. So, for example, an external Bitcoin wallet, a physical device, doesn't start any apps, right? So here we clicked on an app. If we have a physical device, you cannot actually start apps on that device. It is just a Bitcoin. It doesn't even have internet connection or a direct internet connection. It doesn't run any apps. And so it's harder for a hacker to steal Bitcoins from that. But a software wallet, it carries some risk, of which you saw one example in this video. So all right, folks, let's wrap it up for this video. Bitcoin security, it's all in your hands. So be cautious, stay informed, and let's keep those wallets safe. So until next time, secure and happy holding. Hello and welcome back, Crypto Warriors. Today we're diving into a crucial topic of Bitcoin security. Specifically, the risk associated with sharing your desktop, your Windows desktop, your Mac desktop. You can remotely share it over the network. But this has potential network vulnerabilities. So let's get started. On any Windows or Mac computer, you can allow remote desktop. So in here we can type remote desktop, click remote desktop settings, and it's possible that this is enabled. If it is enabled, it means someone on the same network or over the internet can connect to your computer to help you with your computer problems. However, this is just secured by a single password, and so a hacker could potentially get into your computer if this is enabled. So you might want to disable that completely if you store any bitcoins on your computer. So your Bitcoin is your treasure, protecting it is paramount. So this is one of the risks that you should really consider, that you might not want to have remote desktop enabled. Sharing too much about your Bitcoin transactions can attract unwanted attention, or even just sharing a remote desktop. So be mindful about your security, because the security of your Bitcoins is your responsibility. So remote desktop, it can be very convenient, but it's also very risky. Let me give you a demonstration. On the left, we have the hacker's computer. On the right, we have the computer with the Bitcoins. So we have the wallet here. Wallet is running here, it's just outside of the screen. Let me just move that. So let's move it a bit around. Okay, so on the right we have a Windows computer with a Bitcoin wallet, and it has remote desktop enabled. So you might think, why is that a problem? Someone can help me out, it's easy. It's not such a good idea. So first, let's suppose you're on any public place. It can be an airport, a hotel, or anywhere else, maybe a coffee shop. And in such places, you might not be the only one on the network. There might be a lot of other people and potentially some hackers. So what they might do is scan the network for people on the network, and then specifically scan devices. So they might scan your computer address. So in this case, it's the computer address of this computer. They scan it with a tool. And then they see that remote desktop is enabled. You see here, they see that by looking at the number. So 3389, which is the communication line for remote desktop on Windows. If I click advanced, you see here connection port for remote desktop 3389. So now that they know that there's remote desktop on the Windows computer, they use the tool Nmap for that. They might then scan or try to connect to it, but not in the normal way. They might know that your name, your personal name, but they don't know the password to get into your computer. So what they can do instead is use a password list. So they have lists, maybe 1 million password list, 10 million password list, or even larger. And they can just automatically try every password one by one in an automatic way using a tool called Hydra. So when I press enter, it will do that. This is a very large file with passwords, so it has 1 million passwords. If I press enter here, you'll see it takes a moment, and then it tries passwords one by one. And because the password is so simple, it found the password. So it only took a second or so, and it found the username and password almost right away. And all of this only because the computer has remote desktop enabled. So, okay, now it has the password, and then what, you might say. So they could connect to your computer with another program, which then asks for the username password that they have because they just cracked it. So they type the username password. And now they're inside your computer. Might take a moment or so to load. So now they're inside the computer. Doesn't matter which Bitcoin wallet is there. They can now send Bitcoins to their own wallet. Click fill in the data and click send or pay. And they done have stolen your Bitcoins. And all of this is possible only because you enabled the remote desktop. And second, so that was the first mistake. And the second mistake was choosing a very simple password. So in this case, the password was 123456. Even if you choose more complicated passwords, it's possible that your password is in such a password list. So if I show you the top of that file, let's say the first 100 passwords, you see it's just full of commonly used passwords. And that list is 1 million. So this file has 1 million commonly used passwords. But there are password lists that are even longer, 10 million, 100 million. And so it was quite easy to get in the computer because we picked a simple password and because remote desktop was enabled. So you want to be mindful about what do you enable on your computer. Ideally, you don't enable anything, you don't install any applications. That would be the most secure. But with a software wallet, that is not really possible. That's only a hardware wallet or physical paper. So that is the real risk with remote desktop sharing. So now you know a little bit about network risks. We use the tool called Hydra to do a so-called brute force attack, finding those weak passwords, and then take over the computer remotely. So you want to protect your Bitcoin not just by not clicking on any apps, but also by securing your network. So don't enable remote desktop, don't share any folders on the network, don't share anything, maybe even disconnect from the internet completely. Or if you have to, use firewalls and just take really good care of your security. Ideally, you don't use a software wallet and go straight to hardware wallets, because then you don't have these kind of risks. So there you have it, Bitcoin Guardians. Protecting your Bitcoin isn't just about technology, it's also about smart practices. Because if the user picked a good password, the hacker might not have gotten in. Or if the user here also set a good password on their wallet. So this wallet didn't have any password, which was more about the last video, because in this video they have direct access into your desktop. So with the remote desktop, if they picked a good password for their user, the hacker might not have gotten in. So it isn't just about apps or technology, but also about good practices. So the hacker could, or the Bitcoin owner could have prevented this hack by disabling remote desktop completely. So there you have it. And see you in the next video. Until next time, stay secure, stay vigilant, and may your Bitcoin thrive. Welcome back, crypto warriors and enthusiasts. So today we're diving into the world of Bitcoin security on Linux. I'm your host, and we're about to explore if this is any difference if we use a Linux computer. So you might think, okay, the Windows computers, maybe it's known to have security problems, or Mac or whatever. I'm on Linux, I'm safe. You might have that thought, but you might be surprised that although Linux is renowned for its security, that doesn't mean that we should let our guard down. The same kind of security problems affect Linux computers. So if you install random apps, you could lose your Bitcoin. If you share your desktop, the same kind of attack is possible. If you overshare anything, any kind of service, they might get into your computer and steal your Bitcoins. So first things first, you might want to be sure that you download your Bitcoin wallet from a secure source, so from an original source, not some fake wallet. Otherwise you can lose your Bitcoin immediately. You have to keep your system up to date, because Linux systems also have security vulnerabilities. But you have to be mindful about your password practices as well. So make sure your wallet is strong, your passwords are strong. Don't use simple passwords like password123 or something like that. Might consider using a passphrase for added security. Basically, just because you are using Linux doesn't mean you're secure. Even though we have Linux and Bitcoin, it's really not just about the technology, but also about the mindset, about how do we use the computer. So the user took this Linux computer to the coffee shop, to the hotel, or any other public place. They might think they're secure. A hacker here is on the same network. They might do a scan on who is on the same network. So they find out, okay, there's some devices, some people or some computers on the network, which are these four. They might be interested in just checking systematically. Maybe there's someone holding Bitcoins. And so what they could do next is do a same scan, seeing what kind of services are open on the computer. And you'll see here there's the SSH service open, which allows you to remotely control the computer through the terminal. It's similar to remote desktop on Windows, but it's command line or terminal version. So now that they found a possible attack vector, a possible vulnerability, which is the service being open, they can then attack it. They could choose to do a password attack again with the same password list, so with rockutxt, with the same tool that tries every password one by one in that password list, using the target. So in this case, they're attacking the service SSH. So the hacker would change this. This is the target computer address. The username, they might not know it, But if you see here, we did the scan and the username is Ubuntu. Or sorry, the system is Ubuntu. So the username might be Ubuntu as well. So the hacker might try that based on the information it knows. Or it might try with a user list and just trying this automated attack to get into your system. So depending on the username password, it can be very fast or take a long time to get into your system. In this case, was another weak password used. So the user used the password I love you with simple Ubuntu was the username. So now they can remotely log into the computer. Now, as I mentioned, SSH is like remote desktop, like the Windows remote desktop or Linux or Mac remote desktop, but it's completely command line or terminal based. So they would use the command line, as I'm doing now, to log into that computer. Sorry, that's a typo. Then use the password it found here by cracking. And now they're in the computer. So next they can use the command line to find if you have any bitcoins stored in your computer, and then they could view it or download it to their computer. So there you have it, Linux users. So security is not just about the system. It doesn't matter you use Linux, Windows, Mac or something else. It is also about the mindset, what services or apps you run on that computer. Because if it's badly configured, it might be a hacker gets into your computer and steals your Bitcoin wallet. So it's quite a journey. It is not a process or an install to be secure. You have to constantly be mindful about what do you do on that computer. So that is also the downside of all these software wallets. So on the one side, it's easy, just install an app and you have your Bitcoins on the computer. But one single mistake could lead that you lose your Bitcoins. So it's in this case, they have remote desktop enabled on their Linux computer. Or sorry, SSH enabled, which is like remote desktop but command line. And that could allow the attacker to take over the computer. Or it could be other mistakes like running a simple program or anything else. So it's really not so easy to keep your Bitcoin safe on a computer that you use for daily use, because one single click or one mistake and you could lose all your Bitcoin. And so what you could do, or what is a good idea, is if you're serious about Bitcoin, to go for hardware wallets instead of all these software wallets, because a single mistake and you can lose all your Bitcoin. And if you use a computer for daily use, it's very easy to do one click wrong or one application or setting that shouldn't be enabled. Or maybe you just forgot to do an update in time. So there's really a lot of risks by using software wallets on your computer. So you have to be proactive about your security. If you want to use those software wallets, it's possible. I mean, technically it's possible, but it's also very risky. And you can, of course, add extra security, like you can add two-factor authentication, which you might need an extra device or others. But hardware wallets, of course, it reduces the risk by a lot, because, okay, they might hack your computer, but if your Bitcoin is not in your computer, but an external device, it will be a lot harder for them to attack. Or you can even go the paper wallet route. So if you have your Bitcoin's keys on paper, it's basically unhackable. It's just in the physical world that it exists. There is no network possibility. There's no internet. So that is the most secure, but not the most convenient for regular use. So the more safe option or bet could be to go for a hardware wallet like a Trezor or any of the other hardware wallets. So hope this is helpful. So just because you use one system or the other, maybe use Mac, Windows, Linux, or whatever is popular, doesn't mean it's automatically secure. You have to be mindful and pay attention to what you do in that computer. Don't download random apps. Don't share anything on the network. And basically what you want to do is have nothing enabled, maybe even the internet disabled. Such a scan, of course, here we were able because this application is enabled. You shouldn't have anything enabled if you use Bitcoin, because one single mistake could lead to a loss of your Bitcoins. So that sums it up. Until next time, stay secure and may your Bitcoin thrive. Welcome back. So today we're diving more into Bitcoin security. Okay, so before we looked at computer systems, we looked at Windows, at Linux, and the same principles apply to Mac computers. So we know that storing them in desktop computers carries some risks. But what about mobile? What if you store your Bitcoins in an Android or an iPhone? So of course that is not without risks either. We know that if we leave our phone, or maybe we put them in our pockets, they can be stolen. Oh, yeah. They have all kind of tricks, bad guys that can steal your phone. So there is that risk. But besides that, there are other risks as well. For example, you could run an outdated system that has security holes, so an outdated Android. Or it could be that you install some apps on your phone that actually do some malicious things. So on this system that is specifically for hacking, there's a tool called MSF Venom. So that program creates malicious programs, for example, for Windows or for other systems. So if I type list and then search for platforms, you'll see it can generate malicious programs for all kinds of systems, including Android or Apple iOS. So that means that with this program, a hacker could create a malicious program. So they run a command like this. Once the user starts it, gives them control over their device, which can be Windows computer, Apple, or Linux, but also mobile. So it can be Android or iPhone as well. So they can use this program to create a malicious program. So it could be Android, Apple iOS, or even very unknown systems. And with a single click, they could then have access to that computer, and the hacker could then steal your Bitcoins. So just because you use mobile, it doesn't necessarily mean you're safe. Similar to how if you use Mac or Linux over Windows, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are safe. So it's something to pay attention that all of these software wallets, no matter if it's mobile or desktop, they carry similar or the same kind of risks. So it's something that it is quite important to be mindful of. So just because you use this or that system, it doesn't mean that it's secure. You have to check all your security settings. Now, of course, you can do all kind of security things. You can make backups of your wallet so that prevents from crashing. You can enable two-factor authentication, or set a PIN, and so on. So there's all kind of extra security you can do. But out of the box, just because you use one or the other system, it doesn't mean it's secure. So there you have it. Because you use Android or any other system, you need to be mindful about the security of your system. So I hope this is helpful and gives you some insight that no matter which system you use, a single click and a person can be in your computer. And it doesn't matter if you use any kind of system. So if you want to be really secure, you might want to consider hardware wallets where basically you don't run any apps. And it will be really hard for a hacker to get Bitcoins out of the hardware wallet. So stay secure, stay safe, and keep watching your security.